exist that can estimate the soil erosion, because it is from a open ground, and from means it, the spatial scale can vary, means it is in some place there is a different land use or topographical cover, and in some places there are something else. So that's why method to estimate the erosion from different places are different. So for this there are different equations exist, empirical as well as physics based. Empirical means from a given area of concern you fit certain statistical attribute, or like some kind of a relation for that is applicable for that particular area only, so that is known as the empirical. And physics based, there you use certain physical modeling approach, for example the numerical models, and that needs some forcing parameter. Forcing means that you input in the system, that is called the forcing. So you need a different forcing parameter, and from that numerically you can estimate the soil erosion. So these are different techniques available that we are going to discuss in this week's lecture. So this particular chapter is there in your theory class as well as in your lab. Okay, so the theory we will discuss as part of the theory lecture, and in lab we are going to cover certain numericals to estimate the soil erosion processes. But this chapter is belong to both in your theory, means it will be also in your theory component of exam, and it will also be in your lab component of the exam, because the syllabus is common for the both the cases. Okay, so that is the information. So at that time in exam, do not ask that this was not there. So it is common both in the lab as well as in the theory. Okay. Now start with. So why we should need to estimate the soil erosion processes. So, now we'll go to why it is needed, because you more or less know that modeling of water and wind erosion is important, because to understand the processes that govern the soil erosion, or also to predict the runoff and the runoff induced losses. For example, if there is a flash flood, so the flash flood means the sudden flood, because you know, means from the prior you don't know that there is going to be a flood in that particular area. So the flash flood or any kind of this normal flood also erode the topsoil or the productive soil particles together. So to predict these things, so that leads to the losses in the agricultural activity, because the what is the productive land, so that is already got lost. Okay, and it also you need to estimate the soil erosion rate, and if there is some possibility you want to avoid this kind of erosion, so that whatever the land is there for the agricultural or for any industrial purposes, that gets preserved. Okay, so the modeling of erosion, I'll go to my point. So that help us to understand the erosion driving processes. So what are the erosion driving processes? In this case, it is typically it is the first and foremost, it is the water. So water, because you in the first part of your this course is basically of the hydrology. So there you know how this water helps in the erosion processes, because of the flood. If it is the extreme precipitation that leads to flood, so by now all of you know that flood can erode the topsoil, and that leads to the loss. And if it is a scarcity, so for example, if it is a long period of time there is no rainfall, or it is a water stress condition, so that also leads to another hydroclimatic extreme, that is drought. So in case of drought, you have a high temperature as well as the low humidity content, and that leads to the formation of the cracks on the top of the soil. So that also leads to the the loss of the productive land, right? So both way of extreme is detrimental. So whether it is a flood or whether it is a drought. So the modeling the soil erosion helps us to understand the erosion driving processes. So these are the erosion driving processes. The first and foremost is your water. So whether it is a water surplus situation, flood, or it is a water scarce situation or the drought. The second eroding agent is wind. So the first and foremost example of the wind erosion, anyone can predict? The first and foremost example, the high wind speed. So how it can affect the soil erosion. I need an interactive class. So can anyone say how the wind affect the erosion?
More the wind speed, more will be the erosion.
Yeah, more the wind speed, more is the erosion. It is generally square of the wind velocity. The wind erosion is proportional to a square, or some places it is up to the 6th power. So different studies have shown a different this thing, the depending upon the area. So as I told, there's empirical equations that exist, so that is applicable for that particular area as concerned. So the most prominent wind effect you can see in is of the desert. In the desert land, so there is no vegetative cover, right? It is mostly the sandy soil, or the sand and sand everywhere, with very coarse soil structure. So what happened if there is a wind, so high wind speed, so that erode the soil, so the topsoil up, because there is no binding factor here. There is little vegetation. So that is the most of this in desert area, you will find the high wind speed, and that's affect this thing. The soil erosion rate is much higher in this area. The second is evolution of on-site and off-site impact of soil productivity, water and air pollution on large scale. So this correspond to mostly the NPS, the non-point source pollution. So if there is a erosion, so that leads to the along with the water, you'll get that the soil is just erode away. That leads to the on-site and off-site impact. So on-site is, this is loss of productive land. So that means loss of your agricultural, this thing, the production. And off-site impact, so there are off-site impact, that is the flora and the fauna, that the biotic system is under like ecological aspect. If there is a less this thing, the productive land, because of the huge erosion process, if there is a less productive land at a certain area, then what happens, whatever this biota, means the small birds or whatever these things, so they try to seek their food in some other area, so they immediately leaves that particular place, because there is not much available food to them. So that means there is an ecological aspect. So if there is a kind of a this scarcity for that particular area, so that effect. So that helps. This is the evolution of on-site and off-site impacts of soil productivity. And here, when it is coming to water and air pollution on a large scale, so in water pollution, it is mostly the non-point source pollution. That means when there is a mixing of the soil particle along with the water, so that is non-point. When it is a point source pollution, that means when directly this affluent, means the industrial affluent and whatever this pollutions are mixing with the water. But when it is non-point, that means if the mixing of soil particles or pesticide along with the water, and that leads to the pollution, that is the NPS pollution. Third is identification of the strategies for erosion control. What are the strategies? So that can prevent the erosion. So that's why we need to understand the soil erosion processes. What are the strategy we can encounter that can help you to reduce the soil erosion process? Then assessment of the performance of the soil conservation practice. Suppose you implement certain strategy, and you check whether this strategy is working for that particular area concerned. So that also help you the evaluation of the soil conservation practices. For example, one of the way to prevent the wind erosion processes is you put rows of trees along the direction of the wind. So that is known as the wind break or the shelter break. So if it is a say large rows of trees, so that means suppose you implement say 22 rows or 23 rows of trees along the direction of the wind. So what happens, the wind even if it is a wind, so the binding capacity of the soil roots, so that will help you to prevent the erosion processes. So first and foremost, if it is a large wind, so whether to check whether this if you implement this strategy, whether it is workable for that particular area of concern. So this is the way that you assess the performance of the soil conservation practices. So these are some of the biological control that you implement. If that doesn't work, then you have to go for certain mechanical, like mechanical means you have to put certain structure like a kind of a barrier so that there is no more erosion, so long enough, or kind of a telescopic barrier. If it is the wind speed is certain height, then you put certain length of the structure. If now it is not working, then it has to be flexible, then you again put little bit larger. So these kind of these things, so whether the mechanical barrier is going to work or whether the biological barrier is good enough. So the evaluation of different performance or evaluation of different conservation practice. So that also helps. So this modeling of the soil erosion also helps us. Means if it is a modeling, that means quantitatively means how much is the soil erosion. So quantitatively you can evaluate, so, right? So that is the way. So these are the factors that help you or that aid in modeling of soil erosion processes, yeah, or the need or the motivation. So why you need to model the soil erosion processes. The next thing is the well-calibrated model provides a good estimate of the soil erosion risk. So as all of you know, if the model is well enough, and soil erosion also result from the complex interaction of soil, plant, and atmospheric forces. So this also is a kind of a generic sentence that all of you know. So here, so what I basically try to explain why we should understand or why the modeling effort is needed to estimate the soil erosion processes. The next thing is, so first there are some empirical equation, and also there are some the physical based equations. So since you are as a part of the undergrad program, so we basically start from the simple one, okay, and then uh, the physical based modeling approach. So those are mostly the higher this curriculum is mostly in the postgraduate study. So here, as part of this curriculum, will mostly cover the empirical model, which is easier to implement and easier to understand. Okay. So this is the first and foremost is the widely used empirical method. So this was firstly given by the Wismeier and Smith in 1965. So whatever this empirical method exists, so those are basically originated from United States. So they may not be applicable for the area like in tropical or the subtropical. So our country comes under the tropical, maybe most of you know. So this directly may not be applicable, but with certain kind of a revision or certain changes of the parameter, we can still apply it for our area of concern. Okay, so that modification, so and the tuning of the parameters is needed for example, for other climatic region. Okay, so what this model uses, like planning and designing the conservation practices. And another thing is it is directly doesn't implement or strictly doesn't based upon the hydraulic principle and the soil erosion theory, but it simplifies the processes of the soil erosion. So since it is like a kind of a dislodging of the particle from certain surface process, so that means you need a hydraulic theory, but it doesn't fully implement all this hydraulic principle, but it tries to simplify the soil erosion as well as the hydraulic principle. So this is this universal soil loss equation. So as this is just cutting, because you can see there is some kind of a status bar. So it is known as actually the universal soil loss equation. In abbreviation, we generally call it USLE. USLE, and then there are some more modification on the top of this, so revised USLE. Then we also have the modified USLE. So these are different variants that exist. So if you search some of this literature on the soil loss erosion, you can find a lot of this equations. So that is, so basically a different continent, the different people have work on, and depending upon their area or locality of concern, the people have devised. So so that I will quickly show you at once when we cover this part. So this 1 or 2 slide, and then I will show you what other people have used as different variants. So there are many, 33 or 34 kind of a equation. So something is developed for Africa, something is specifically developed for Asia. So like this, different varieties that exist. But first and foremost, overall, there is one equation on the base of which there are a number of variants. So USLE is specifically used to predict the soil loss from cultivated soil under specific characteristics. Okay, so these dimensions of the plots are generally fixed, and the unit length, width, so everything is fixed. So on that certain area of the land, so how much is the soil loss, so that we take it as a unit measurement, and we report it. That is the base of the USLE. But so here, as I told you, so it has been developed based upon the certain. It can also be reduced depending upon the dissimilar soil and land use condition. Okay, as I told, with certain modification. And it provides the long term. So whenever you are going to report the soil erosion, it is the average annual loss. So we do not report the soil erosion in terms of higher temporal resolutions. Higher means, when I say higher temporal, that means smaller time window. Okay, so this resolution, this understanding of resolution is important. So when I say the higher, so that means at a daily or hourly time scale. And when it is coarser, means larger temporal resolution. That means you have weekly or monthly and annual scale. Okay, so soil loss, because we measure the day to day, but in case of the water erosion, but when we report the overall soil erosion, we report in terms of an annual rate, annual average rate. Okay, we do not report in terms of hourly or daily estimate. So the USLE generally report long-term annual average estimate of the soil loss from, as I told, small plot. So generally this dimension of the plot is fixed. Okay. With dimension of the soil is fixed with a predefined dimension. It is based upon the measured data. As I told, so it is an empirical. It is based upon the measured data from physically based modeling approaches. The next is, now I'll define what are the advantages and the limitation. So why we use this empirical measure and not the physically based? So all the physically based method, you'll need a lot of parameters. So for area, for a given area, so all these set of parameters may not be available. Okay, because these are the soil loss, right? So you need a lot of information, like the topography, then the soil information, many parameters, several parameters are required, which may not be available for a certain area of interest. So the advantages are, so this USLE are simple and easy to use. Second, it doesn't require the extensive set of input parameter or extensive data set for the prediction. Okay, so these are simple and easy to use and do not need an extensive set of parameters. And the parameters can be estimated from simple graphs or equations. So these are the advantages that USLE have. So you need simple graphs or couple certain equations. So that are the advantages. And limitation, what is the limitation? So limitations are like runoff, nutrient and soil loss from watershed or field scale area. So in detail, you cannot estimate. So if you need for a particular specific watershed scale, so for example, small watershed or large watershed, so you cannot estimate the together, you can just estimate using USLE, you can just estimate the soil loss, but you cannot estimate the runoff, what is the amount of runoff. The nutrient loss, so you cannot estimate what is the amount of NPK. So I hope all of you might know. So what is the NPK? Is like nitrogen, phosphorus, or potassium. So these kind of nutrients are lost from the ground or the soil. So together you cannot estimate like runoff, nutrient, and soil loss from watershed or from a field scale study. Second, you cannot estimate the event or daily basis. So as I told, so the USLE generally estimate in a coarser temporal scale. So for example, in the basis of annual, you cannot estimate for a particular event. So for example, if there is a cyclone, yes, as for example, it is a huge kind of a cyclone event. So for that particular event, what is the amount of soil loss for this cyclonic event, because it also comes with a high wind speed as well as rainfall, because when there is a cyclone kind of, this also brings a lot of moisture from the atmosphere, right? So you cannot estimate for that particular event. So it's a kind of, actually any kind of cyclone is a compounding event, right? So means not only a storm, it is also together with high wind speed or also kind of a storm surge. So different events or different extremes interact or come together. So for a specific event, you cannot estimate the soil loss. So that is one of the fundamental limitations. So you do not have the luxury to estimate the event specific or daily basis. Or what is the variability, means over a month. So if you have the daily data, so today that much soil has been eroded, tomorrow that much. So if you have, so in a month you have 30 or 31 days. So this constitute a sample, right? The sampling variability. So how you estimate the variability? Using the standard deviation or variance, right? So you do not have the flexibility or luxury to estimate the sampling variability. If you have this USLE, right? Day-to-day soil loss, you cannot estimate. Third and foremost is detailed soil erosion processes. You do not have the idea, or you cannot estimate how much soil is lost because of the detachment process, how much is because of the transportation or deposition. So that means the proportion or the ratio. So for each of these processes, how much soil is lost, so that you cannot estimate. So these are these limitations. And it cannot also estimate the channelization and the sediment. So sediment deposition, it is important in the context of the water erosion. So as you know, many of these delta areas around the globe or in the coastal areas, so those are formulated because of this sediment deposition. So one of these example is your the Sundarban Delta in the in Bay of Bengal. So, but USLE cannot estimate how much is the soil erosion processes in quantitatively, so that help you to build this kind of a delta. Okay, so the sediment deposition, the estimate of the sediment deposition or the channelization, you cannot estimate. So these are the limitations of the USLE. So as you can see, it is very simple and easy to use. However, you cannot get, that means there are more limitation as compared to the advantages. Okay, so these are the certain advantages and limitation of the USLE. But in absence of many input parameters, because whether it is India is concerned or in many developed countries, this proper estimation of the soil parameters are very difficult because there are very less number of input parameters, less number of observatory are located to estimate the soil erosion processes. Means the observation locations are very limited. Okay, so that's why in several cases we need to rely on the empirical equation as compared to the physically based method. Okay, so now I will show you some of these papers, a very few paper. I do not intend to show more. So you can see, so this is the spatial distribution or the geographical distribution of around 1,000 sites across the globe. You can see they have estimated the soil erosion using USLE only. So this is a research paper. So it is by the spring, this thing, there's Elsevier. So Elsevier publishers Science of Total Environment. So Elsevier publishers and Science Direct is generally considered to be very good in our domain. It's a review article. So, and this journal is generally considered to be a good journal, the Science of Total Environment. We can have a different paper related to natural hazard and also soil and many other different field we can, they allow us to publish, even some in the areas of say the infectious diseases like COVID-19 pandemic, how it affects the natural hazard. So those kind of publication also you can see. So this is a kind of interdisciplinary venue or interdisciplinary journal. So here this is the paper. So they have shown so different soil laws in various part of the globe. Okay, so these are, you can see there are some observatory site where the soil loss and number of studies over different part of the globe that estimate the soil loss erosion. You can see that in India there are many studies, but the problem in India is a lack of observation or observatory. So there are some government agencies are there that monitor the soil properties in India, but there is a lack of unified approach that can put together all these observation together. So that is the difficult part. And the next thing is, if you see the complete modeling exercise, so you can see, so there are different models they have applied. So as I told, are the revised USLE, then USLE. So these are the empirical models. So that is most commonly used to estimate the soil erosion. But there are some other physical based model are also there. So these are the physical based model, WEP, then SWAT, then this is also a physical based. This is a couple empirical versus the physical. Okay, so these two, the RSLE and SDR, the USLE, SDR. So this is the couple approach. Sometimes what happened, the numerical complexity to apply the physics-based model is very large. So it can take you computation over a month or sometime a couple of weeks, because since unlike other discipline, where in the natural resource engineering, so this, as I told, this precipitation or this temperature, it varies across the space. Space means at each point location over a globe or across the time. So you have to model the three-dimensional effect, right? So across the space means across the x-axis also your properties are varies, across the y-axis, that is across the time dimension also your properties are varies. So you have to model together three-dimensional and more than that, that may be, so means space, time, as well as the different within that system also there is varying. So that means you need to discretize, or you need to solve across the different point, right? So at the grid resolution. So that means uh, your partial differential equations or the whatever you apply the equations, they are far complex enough. So what happens that the numeric this you need a lot of time to discretize these equations. So always the physics based approach is not feasible if you try to do the entire globe. Means if it is entire earth, so you need a larger spatial domain as well as the larger time domain, so that may not be feasible. So that's why it is a kind of a coupling between the physical as well as the empirical approach is required. So that's why we, to avoid this computational complexity, we sometimes go for this USLE method, and then coupling between the empirical and the numerical method is also exist. So then you can see different models has been used. Then erosion 3D, EPIC. EPIC is also a kind of a numerical model. So different techniques has been used, and based upon this they have estimated this the soil loss or the erosion processes. You can see in Indian region there is a lot of this thing. So here this is a soil loss amount has been shown. So you can see basically the largest source of this thing erosion is mostly in the Asian part, right? And in Europe and North America, it is generally less, but in some discrete locations like in the Midwestern or in Pacific Northwest or in the Europe also, in the Eastern Europe, the erosion processes are large. Okay, so here you can see this is a desert location. This is a Sahara desert is located. So wherever there is a desert, so the amount of erosion will be higher because of the wind erosion. And so here also you will see Thar desert. Here in the China you have the Eastern China, you have Gobi desert. So in the wherever there is a desert location, so you will find a large erosion processes. So based upon that they have estimated it's a combination of the modeling as well as the empirical equation. They have estimated the soil loss. So this is as I told. So this is what are the advantages and the limitations. The next thing is now we're going to understand what are the different component or the technical term is being used in the USLE. Okay. So if anyone has any question, they can ask me in between. No. So everything is clear to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is, as I told, the USLE do not give you the lower temporal resolution, or it cannot finer. That means in a daily or in a finer scale, it cannot estimate. It can only estimate at an annual scale, okay, at the like coarser temporal resolution. So here these are the term. A is the annual average soil loss. So you have to take care of the unit, okay, because since it is an empirical, so it has a lot of these 5 component you will have, but with a varying unit. So you can see these units are pretty means difficult to remember. So that's why you need to pay a little bit attention to this. So the A is average annual soil loss, means the dimension. I think all of you know the dimension analysis or the to this thing to revise the unit consistency, but since it is an empirical, it may not be equal. Okay, so that I wanted to say. So the average annual soil loss, so this is a metric ton. So as I told, so remember this is not a milligram, it is a metric ton per hectare over an area of concern and per year. So this is the unit of the soil loss. Then so that is in your left hand side, and in right hand side you will have the 5 terms. So R, so R, K, LS, CP. So LS is a single term, so that is the topographical or terrain attribute. So R is the rainfall and runoff erosivity index. Okay, so this represents the energy and the magnitude of the rain. So which kind of energy could be here? Which kind of energy, whether it is a potential energy or kinetic energy, what it come to your mind? So which form of energy it could be?
Potential energy.
No, it is a kinetic energy.
Kinetic energy.
Yeah, so that is raindrop is hitting to the ground, so it leads the splash. A potential, it's not a potential because potential means it is a kind of static, right? It's a head or something. So it is a kinetic energy. The velocity it hits on the ground, so that determines the dislodging capacity. So that's why it's a kinetic energy that we model here. And the magnitude of the rain. Okay, so what is the amount or magnitude? It also varies depending upon the temporal resolution. So for example, if it is a sub-daily scale rainfall, so for example 3-hour or 6-hour rain event, so that creates more energy as compared to if it is a long incessant rain throughout the day. Means if it is a slow raindrops but throughout a kind of a drizzle effect, so that effect, the rain magnitude affect the amount of dislodging capacity. If it is a kind of a triggering or means a splash, that means a short duration rain with a means a kind of a quick effect, so that affect more erosion. And also it is a kind of a, as you can see, this load bearing capacity. If it is a short duration rainfall but with a large magnitude, so that is not capable to withstand the load, right? So all of you have your mechanics course, the uniformly distributed or UDL load. So if it is a short duration rainfall but with a large magnitude, so that is more damaging as compared to long duration or slow kind of a rain. So that is, the rain magnitude has a huge impact. So that indirectly affect this energy mechanism. So this is the rainfall and the runoff erosivity index, R. And K is your soil erodibility factor. So this is the dimensionless. Okay, it depends upon the texture and structure of the soil. Then LS is the topography or the soil slope factor. Okay, so this is also dimensionless, LS. And C means here how the topography and soil affect. So this example I have given so many times, like landslide example that leads to a slope instability. So the amount of the rainfall, if it is the same amount of rainfall, if it is on a plain ground, so since the ground is plain and it is not at an angle, so it has a little effect on this soil dislodging capacity because it is on the plain land. But if it is a kind of a slope or slopy ground, so in the last lecture I also showed some kind of this load bearing on a triangular block, right? So if it is a slopy ground, so you have the factor of safety. So this factor of safety is proportional to your what is the pore water pressure. So how much the water pressure for a block of soil, and also the angle at which it is located. So for example, this time, if whoever has missed the lecture, this kind of, so if you have a sloping soil, and so this is say at an angle theta, and suppose you have, this is a soil block resting on the top of this, so you have two forces acting on this. One is the force of gravity and another is this force, right? So which is at an angle, this certain angle as this one, right? So this affect this theta also affect what is the stability of this soil block on the top of this. So that's why this topographic and the slope factor also affect this thing, right? The LS. So that is one of this major influencing factor. If there is a larger the soil moisture content, and also this is it is a steeper angle, so the factor of safety is going to reduce. right? So that affect your the slip, the ability of the slip. And then last, another is your vegetation and the crop management cover. Okay, so all of this I have also explained earlier. So the vegetation try to bind the soil particle together and reduces the effect of erosion, the cover, the land cover or the management factor. So that affect the soil erosion. And then P is your human management factor or the anthropogenic. So this is also known as the anthropogenic, A-N, T-H-R-O. It looks like V, but it's R, anthropogenic. Okay, anthropogenic factors. So that also affect your soil erosion. So that you know. So what is your anthropogenic factor? Is your cultivation practices, tillage. So if there is a tillage, then there is a larger, because of the puddling process, there is a less chances of erosion. So these are some of these anthropogenic factors. And then if the people can implement certain kind of a bund, so that also reduces erosion. So, and if there is an illiterate person, so they don't want to do any kind of management practices, then there is again a loss of soil. So this the human induced factor. So what the human does to preserve the soil. So that is your human factor. So that also plays a major role for any particular location. Okay, so the earlier version of USLE particularly uses, so whatever this USLE I have told, so this is a one of the fundamental version of the USLE. So in this equation, you need a lot of tables and figures. So figures means in terms of nomograph. So I think in your food courses, you also have used psychrometric chart in the refrigeration, air conditioning, some the food course. So similarly here also you in the soil loss equation also you have a lot of nomographs. So this earlier version they used to do this tables and the figures, but as there are more and more modifications, so this made there are some modifications, so you do not need huge tables and the figures, so that has been obsolete, but still we use certain fundamentals, tables and figures to estimate the soil, some of these factors like R, K. So K, for estimating K you need certain kind of a chart, so these are needed. Okay, so the next thing is yeah, so this is the soil erodibility factor. So if you have been asked to explain what is soil erodibility factor, it is a measure of soil susceptibility to detach and transporting agent by the erosion or the erosive agent. Okay, so it is the susceptibility of the soil to detach and the transportation by related agents. So it can be any agent by soil, water, or by wind. Okay. The next thing is, please remind me time because I forgot to get my wristwatch. So the rainfall runoff erosivity index. So this is an index. So as I told, you need to use an unit plot. Okay. So this USLE is based upon some unit plot. So this plot, if I ask you in one of the Viva, so what is unit plot? So it is an standard plot, so on which you estimate the soil loss erosion. So why we need this standardized measure? Because in different part of the globe, you have a different land use pattern and also the climatic pattern, so that affect your soil erosion process, right? So if you do not use some standard or unit area, so which is scientifically as well as means that is in consensus with global scientific community, so this area can estimate some kind of a loss, this area can estimate some kind of a loss. So for different estimation there is no consensus, right? To make it uniform across the globe, so we need it to make a unit plot, or that is scientifically consistent across the area or across the locality, given locality. This is same as that, for example, English is a kind of a universal language. So wherever you go in China or wherever in Europe also they have a different language. Mexico, but English everywhere the people understand. So this is the universal this estimate. So that's why it kind of a uniform. So based upon a consensus, scientific consensus that we need to consider a this particular dimension. Okay. So as you can see, so in originality, these units are in MKS unit, so mostly in feet or in that unit. But if we do it in a SI, so if we convert it, because they were originally developed in US, where still there is this feet and gallons, so these kind of units are in use. But as a uniform, so we make it an SI. Okay. So it is based upon an unit plot. So you can see this unit plot. So this has been covered. Means you have this kind of a covered area across this four side corner. So this is a 22 meter long and width is 1.83 meter wide. So this is a standard plot we use to estimate the soil loss. It is in a bare field, so that we use it. So you have to keep in mind, so it is a 22 meter long and 1.83 meter wide. Okay. And the gradient we maintain as this is a standard gradient. Okay, 9% slope gradient is maintained, and the factor LSCP we assume at a 1. 1 is means there is no conservation practice and no it is a bare fallow land. Okay, LS equal to 1, that means cultivation up and down slope. So across the up slope and across the down slope and across the up slope is maintained in a continuously regularly tilled fallow condition. Means we need to prepare this ground like it is a properly tilled ground and bare and fallow, so there is no vegetation. So in absence of any vegetation or management practices, we keep it as a C factor as 1, and P there is no conservation practice. So that means LACP. So all these four terms is unit. So that's why it is known as the unit plot. But you have to keep in mind the dimension. It is 22 meter long, 1.83 meter wide, and the slope is 9%. Okay. So this is a the unit plot where we generally estimate the soil loss, and it can account for the reel and inter-reel erosion. Means small kind portion, means very minor erosion it can estimate, but it cannot estimate the soil loss for gully. Gullies means deep deep layer of the soil erosion, so which generally take place because of the meandering of the river, so that it cannot estimate. In also mostly these gullies form in a like a steep ground, like meandering of the river along the this mountain area or kind of a terrain or the peninsular area have the formation of gullies. And mass movement processes, that means mass movement like landslide caused erosion, it cannot measure it. It can measure the minor erosion processes. Okay. So as I told, you need to also rely on certain graphs. So this is the slope length versus the topographic factor, LS factor. So this, when we solve the problem, we will also refer this graph pretty often. Okay. So this graph exists. So here you have the slope of the soil. So you can see starting from 0.5 to up to the 50% slope. So that is considered to be most common. And then the topographic factor and the slope length. So considering this, we try to solve certain some of the problems or the numericals. And then rainfall erosivity factor, that is the R factor. So what is actually the rainfall erosivity factor is, So it refers to the intrinsic capacity of rainfall to cause the soil erosion. So what are the factors that affect the soil erosion or the erosivity? So erosion is whatever the soil is already gone because of the erosion, and erosivity is the capacity to erode this soil. Okay, so the properties that affect erosivity are the amount, intensity, terminal velocity, drop size, and drop size distribution. So that affect your soil erosion processes or the erosivity. So erosivity of rain and its effect differ among the climatic region. So in the tropic, you have the more erosion. So in your this figure also you can see in the tropic you have the larger erosion. So somewhere I showed you, right? So not here, I think in the paper. Here. So the tropic is this area. So this is, if it is the center of the earth, is the line of your this thing tropic, and across north you go up to 23.5, and across south you go up to 23.5. The region bounded by this area 23.5 north and 23.5 south, you have the tropical climate zone. So here you will get a larger erosion. So for example, if this, you can see the Africa is a larger erosion, in India, some part of the China. So why? Because the rain intensity and the magnitude of the rain is larger in tropics as compared to the temperate region. So for example, in our country, we have a well-defined rainy season. There are 2 times there are rain, but in temperate climate, there is no well-defined rain season. Entire year, there is some kind of rain, and it is in the form of a drizzle. The magnitude or the drop distribution is very different in North America or European continent as compared to the tropic. It is the rain distribution is larger, means the amount, and the drop size distribution is very different as compared to this country as or in comparison to tropic, because here you have the presence of strong wind and also high temperature. So this also affect the erosion processes. And the annual distribution of the rain, it also affect the erosivity. So rain in the temperate region, so here the temperate region is your Canada, US and Europe, part of the Europe, some part of the Australia. So these are uniformly distributed across the season. As I told, they do not have a well-defined rainy season. So across year, you'll have some kind of a drizzle. Sometime it is more in June to September, but then also the drop size distribution is pretty different. It's kind of a drizzle. It's not a well-defined rain as in our country or in tropic. So it results in a unimodal distribution because you have only one peak, right? So entire year you have a certain kind of rain. So that leads to a unimodal distribution. So that leads to a less erosion. But in tropics, rain are distributed across 2 seasons, whether in India or in Africa. So in India, you have 2 well-defined seasons. One is the southwest monsoon, that in June to September. Another is in northeast monsoon, that is around October to December in Kerala and also in some part of the country. Same with Africa, they have 2 rain seasons. One is in the February to March up to the beginning of April. Another is sometime in, I forgot, but it is 2 rain season. The main is the February to April one. So in all tropical countries, rain is distributed in 2 seasons, and the magnitude of the rain in tropic and the drop size distribution is also different as compared to, means it is larger as compared to the mid latitude or in extra latitude or high latitude countries. Extra latitude means the countries located north of 60-degree latitude. So those are also known as the extra latitude or the winter countries. So that differs the rain size or the raindrop distribution and annual distribution of the rain differs the erosivity across the globe. Okay, quickly check the time. Okay. So I think we already have the 3 minutes left. Okay, so I will continue the lecture again on the Wednesday. And if you have any questions, just quickly ask me before. So,
Excuse me, ma'am.
yes.
Ma'am, why are we not considering the wind erosion factors as well in this equation? Like there is one for rainfall and others, and there
Ah,
are other
we are
factors.
considering the wind also. So this is mostly we use for the rainfall induced erosion in USLE. But there is one factor, what it is, that K. K factor is the soil erodibility factor. So that also account of the wind erosion indirectly. But for the wind erosion, to estimate the wind erosion, there is another dedicated formula. So when we go to the wind erosion chapter, there we will estimate. Okay. So this is mostly the water erosion. USLE estimate mostly the water erosion, but indirectly the wind is estimated using this K factor, the soil erodibility factor. But there is another dedicated formula is there to estimate the wind erosion. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. And one more clarification, ma'am. These L, S, C, P are one when there are no practices done, and they tend to zero when the adequate amount of practices are conservation practices are done.
Yeah,
Correct?
but zero is never possible. It is the ideal situation, so which
Yes,
never,
ma'am. I'm saying
yeah,
tending to zero,
yeah,
not zero.
yeah, tending to zero. It is the factor depends upon from 0 to 1. So I will also share you some of the tables and charts. So for different management practices, you will get a different C and P. And it also depend upon this thing, slope of the soil and different conservation practices. The intensity of rainfall, C and P also varies. Okay, so that I will show you. There are charts are there. So mostly these are basically depend upon the chart. That means they in a certain area of concern for like a long period of time, some experiment was conducted, and based upon that, these CPLS, so these factors were decided. So for India, there was a study by Singh et al. So he has done some study for different areas of the India. So depending upon for different country, these factors also vary. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So if there is no more question, I think we have to quickly rush to another class, and we will again meet Wednesday at 8. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.